to come to know you in a more intimate fashion. So we thank you for that, and for those who we get the chance to experience what you're doing in Jesus' name, Amen. So turn me down. Thank you. All right. So, all right. So there are three passages that we started last week, emphasizing that we're definitely in the last days. So we're going to be spending some time setting the foundation for that. Then, so starting next week, we'll start looking at some things that happen on the prophetic calendar to let us know how certain things have taken place, for us to really be a little more intentional about what we're doing and saying. So, what are some of your thoughts? This is a rhetorical question. What are some of your thoughts about just what you're experiencing now? On the one hand, we have some of us who are trying to avoid the reality of what the circumstances are. This is the most critical time, the most dangerous times that literally have ever existed in the history of mankind right now where we are. This is but this is part of what God said was going to happen. But we're in it. We actually are in it. And so with our being in it, then that says there are some things that he's expecting us to do. And that's part of how we're walking through this process. So this first passage, so there are three passages. One is in 2 Timothy chapter 3, another one, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, and the last one is in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5. So that's 2 Timothy 3, 2 Thessalonians 2, 1 Thessalonians 5. We started a little bit about this last week. Verse 1, 2 Timothy chapter 3, know this, that in the last days perilous times will come. And that's where we are. That people will be focusing on themselves more than anything else. Love money or things, material things. Boastful, proud, blasphemers. Anything's liable to come out of people's mouths. But listen to the rest of these headlines. Disobedience to parents. Do you experience any of that? You see any of that? Unthankful. You can just read the headline. Unholy. Unloving. Unforgiving. You see, these things are, this is where we are. The thing is, the question is whether or not are we doing any slanderers, without self-control, cold-blooded, despisers of good, traitors. People will turn on you. They'll flip on you. They'll just turn on you. Traitors, headstrong, arrogant, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying the power thereof. So that's the part we want to focus on. Having a form of godliness but denying the power thereof. Now I must tell you, can't make this a monologue. You're gonna have to talk this out, because you have to be able to reflect on some of what the real experiences are, because people need to know. Here's the one thing you got to really understand. None of God's children are called to be bystanders. We're not called to be bystanders. Salt and light cannot be bystanders, because salt and light impacts everything. Nothing stays the same when light shows up in darkness, or when salt shows up in a situation that's not good. So we're not called to be bystanders. We're called to be involved in impacting situations and the lives of people. just because of our nature, just because of our makeup, we're supposed to be like that, just naturally. And the only way that that does not happen, then we have to do what this part says, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. To deny it says you don't embrace it, you don't walk with, you don't do all of that. And so that's what this is a part of what we want to talk a few minutes about. We're not pressing it, but we have to talk. But we have to talk. We have to talk. So what's being impressed on me right now? One is that I give out too much information. That being one. So the Lord tapped me on the shoulder, slow it down. Got to give out less because it's too much. But then on the other hand, the secondary part to that is said you have to check in to make sure people are getting it before you add anything to whatever you have said. So I'm under directive now. Don't give out too much. Stop. Get feedback before adding anything to that. So that's where I am right now, and that's why you all have to talk. So that's why, because he said some of it is wasting and going past us because there's not the chance to make sure we're able to digest it. Now, what you've heard is these are the times that we're in, and you can't run from it. You can't escape it because you're in it. And it's only God's people that he's going to use to impact the circumstances for the better. It's only his people. Those who walk in darkness can only contribute to darkness. It's only those who walk in light can impact the darkness. It's only those who are salt and light can impact the foul nature of things around us. Well, I guess some could probably say, well, I'm not going to get into people's business. People are going to do whatever they want to do. But you know, the reality is we are in people's lives. We are in people's lives. And we choose what level of involvement we're going to be in. We choose that because we pick and choose how we engage people. We pick and choose who we want to spend the kind of time with. And do you know what happens too many times? God's children cluster too much until all you have is a pile of salt. A pile of salt. Now, do you know that, now you lost me. Do you know that part of what happens in places where there's snow is that the salt mounds are already sitting. And sometimes they stay like that when there isn't any snow. So therefore it just sits there. But once there is a weather challenge, they don't let it sit there and say, oh, well, we hope that the temperature goes up and we hope that something else happens. What they do, they put a plan in place. They decide how many they're going to have. They make sure all of the trucks are working. They make sure the things that can dump and move it are operative, because what they know is that it is this salt and this other treatment that's going to impact the conditions that have presented themselves. And that really paints a picture for us. The salt, it just sits there and can't help anything if it isn't taken and put in the mix of where the challenging circumstances are. Unless they do that, then it doesn't happen. And strategically, they don't treat everything the same way at the same time. When they see something coming, they could typically treat the streets if the temperature is at a certain level. Then they'll treat the street prematurely. They also know that when the temperature goes down to a certain level, that salt by itself will not do it, but they prepare the ground so that the salt can become beneficial. Now here we are, children of God. We are declared as salt and light. And we see darkness around us, which is geared to be changed. And do we stay in the salt shaker? And bragging that we're salt. Saying how much I love the Lord. Talking about how good God is. Bragging about what he's been doing for me. But I'm still in the salt shaker. Did you know that The ocean is not what needs the water, it's the desert that needs the water. So when I'm just giving my quote testimony to another saint, that's water to water. It's just water to water. And all it is, water on top of water, while the desert is still dry out there, and that's where the water is needed. So we're just water upon water. Salt, adding salt to salt only makes more salt. It still doesn't preserve anything. So when the only thing saints are doing are talking to each other is salty to salt. And it benefits no one because salt doesn't need more salt. It goes on to say, and you can track this down, if salt has lost its savor, it's good for nothing and need to be trodden underfoot. Now, do you know what that says? Well, maybe you didn't know what that says. Well, do you know what that says? You know what that says? God says, I don't like you. In fact, in Revelation chapter 3, it says, you're lukewarm and you make me vomit. And I want to spew you out of my mouth because you're salt. In Matthew 5, it says, let your light so shine that others might see. He said, then I'll get the glory. He said, I don't get the glory when a saint telling a saint about how good I am. I don't get that glory. They already know. He said, that doesn't give me glory. He says, I want the ones who don't know to hear, and you're the only one that's been designated to do it. So let me stop right there for a moment. Salt, light, salt, light. What do you say? Salt, light. What do you all say? If you salt and you light, then if you light shines. If you salt disrupts. We promise you, you could take a 5-pound bag of sugar and a teaspoon of salt. That 5-pound bag of sugar no longer will taste like sugar. If you mix that teaspoon of salt in there, it will no longer, you'll start asking, what is this? Because it would have impacted, a teaspoon of salt can impact 5 pounds of sugar. And we wonder whether or not God is saying, do I want you present? He's saying, I want you present because what I've made you will impact if you don't run away. Now, do you notice what just happened in Memphis recently and how not just those 5, they've suspended some other people because they they stood idly by and did not take some steps, and nobody said something to another one. And so they went to the EMS people saying they treated for pepper spray only instead of looking at the condition of the person and treating him properly. So they were negligent. They contributed to the death of the young man because they looked. And for us, for this discussion purposes, they were not salt. They shut down. So we're back to you all, salt and light. You all are so much salt and light. I can't wait to hear from this salt and light. I'm just waiting to hear from salt and light. All I'm doing is sprinkling and stirring it, sprinkling and stirring it, sprinkling and stirring it, salt and light. So therefore, salt and light, when you only bragging to another salt, then it's just, you just grainy, just salt to salt. Salt to salt. You just salt to salt. You got a flashlight, I got a flashlight. We showing them at each other. What have we gotten accomplished other than showed light? And it meant nothing because it did not help anybody else. I'm pointing the light at you and you're pointing the light at me. What about those in the dark? Did it help anybody in the dark? Because you didn't even walk along with the light showing something where you were going. You were so busy pointing it at another saint, and they were showing you, well, if you think your light is something, I'm going to tell you something about some light. And before you know it, we get into testimony fights. If you think that's something, let me tell you what's God done for me. Okay, salt, light. You salt, you light. I'm just listening. Because not only are you physically, but there are other people who are listening and are under conviction about what we're hearing. Because did you realize we are co-conspirators of the condition of society when we are part of a space and we shrink and say it's not my business? Oh, yes, it is.
They were all salt to salt that was involved in that murder.
Now keep going and bring that on home to children of God.
Not one person in that group.
No. We left that. Now you got to bring it back in to saints. We use that as a picture. Now you got to bring it. What does that look like for us as saints in the things that we are around? We don't have to be a police officer or a fire person to be how people's lives are a wreck. And we see them and we know them and they're not strangers. See, the problem is, it's not the strangers that are our issue. It's the people we know and are connected to. It's not the strangers. It's folk we know. And so many times we talk about them and we're connected. Salt, light. Now you got salt, light. We know them. We know Pookie. And we know Charmaine. Because all of them not Pookie. Some of them are Charmaine dressed to the hilt. And we know them too. So God, here's the deal. God doesn't give us relationships just us to say we have them. They should experience us in a way that they know. I mean, folk got to know we're in the last days. Because some folk don't believe it. They're clueless. All they're doing is talking about what's happening and don't know it's a part of the big picture. How else will they know salt and light if you don't tell them? Mm-hmm. Now, that's the world we're in right now. Now, you were about to say.
Yeah, I was just about to say this is super convicting for me, anyway, personally. And it makes me think that we overestimate the term iron sharpens iron, which it does, but the way I'm hearing it today is that we are, in the day and age that we live in right now, we really have no choice as saints of God but to be salt and light. And if we don't do it to the capacity that God expects us to, we're really falling short.
Now, did you know, and I'm so glad you brought that passage out of Proverbs 27, says 17, says iron sharpens iron. We have misused, misquoted, and bludgeoned it. The purpose of something being sharp is a cut. Not just to rub shoulders. It's to cut. You don't sharpen something unless you're trying to cut something. And so therefore, if iron sharpens iron, then you making me better at the mission. So when I talk to you, if you're on point, and notice using the term, if you're on point and I'm on point, whenever we talk, it's to encourage and motivate. I got to go back out there. So when I come back, I might have been dull for a moment, but we're going to keep sharpening each other and telling each other because we come to go. We gather to scatter. Saints of God gather to scatter. Gather to scatter. You said, why is that? They gather to scatter because that's the model of the church out of Acts chapter 1 and 2. When initially, they didn't want to go anywhere. God said, I'm going to get you out of Jerusalem because I told you you're supposed to be my witnesses. In Jerusalem, first in Jerusalem, then in Judea, then in Samaria. And he said, you all not going out of Jerusalem? I tell you what, I'm going to shake you up and you shall go. Mm-hmm. The model is you gather to scatter.
Because if you don't, you end up being a big cluster of salt.
Okay, then let me give you another example. Now that you're doing that. So Gwen, what happens when some of the people come to you? How do their hair get matted? How do people's hair get matted?
Oh, your hair gets matted when you don't comb it for a long period of time.
Go into a little more detail about that. Are you following it? All right.
Yeah, if it gets matted, that means your hair is dreading. Everybody knows what dreadlocks are. Now, you know.
Now, everybody don't, so you have to talk.
Well, they do. You
No.
Right?
No. I said everybody doesn't. You're not just talking to people in this place.
Oh, well, dreadlocks is really just matted hair.
Okay.
So in order to get that down, it's a long process. So if somebody comes with their hair matted, then I'm going to have to do some work to get it unmatted.
Work such as what?
I got to wet it down. I got to put conditioner, oil, whatever will soften it up. Then I got to pull it apart. That takes a while. Then after I pull it apart, I still got to try to get that comb through it to get all the matting out. So it takes a while.
If you're hearing this picture, that's what it's like when saints just cluster.
Right.
We mat.
Wow.
And the more comfortable you become in clustering, the less comfortable you become in unclustering. So you keep finding somebody else until you start getting like this. Notice what it does. It isn't open, it starts to close. And what young people and others who are not in church say, that church just this. They're closed, they're exclusive, and they don't let nobody in because they are matted. Nobody feels welcome because they are matted. They go find another one to hover around. But great picture. Watch this. People go to a church and they talk to the same people all the time. They don't talk to anybody else.
Yeah.
People go to the church, they sit by the same people all the time. They don't sit by anybody else. What do you think that is?
Matting. Clustering.
You got it? People sit in the same spot. What do you think that is? You follow me? I'm just saying, this is the reality. Now, think about somebody come in. Okay. First time everybody ever come in anywhere. We talking anywhere. And then they walk into a space, and sometimes people look at somebody they've not seen before in an odd way. Because they were not a part of. So they're trying to wonder, am I welcome? Because I see how
Exactly.
salt and light, salt and light, salt and light, salt and light. Man, God's kind of opened this up because I didn't know how he's going to do this, but he's shown up and brought this thing here now. This thing is right here because that's the real deal. That's the real deal. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. So last week I brought up a situation, and we were talking about relationships. We have to have a relationship in order to, like, I guess, dig deeper with the person.
Right.
So in order for us not to be clustering together and get out and affect the lives of other people, we then should be looking to build those relationships with others. Are we the initiators, or should be the initiators, or should we be waiting on them to come to us?
If you really think about it, there are some natural dynamics of relationship. We just meet people.
Yeah.
Conversations just start. When the conversations just start, unless I choose to not converse with somebody, I find a reason to not, the natural dynamics will put you around people. Naturally. Some environments you go in, people are literally unavoidable.
Yeah.
People are unavoidable. They're everywhere. You find they're everywhere. But you know what happens? If we're not careful, we'll look and say, they're not salt, I'm not talking to them. Oh, they don't look right. So what? Light, salt. Does light dispel darkness, or does darkness dispel light? Does salt preserve, or does salt get shut down? You could take a pinch of salt, a pinch. Just drop it over something. You will know salt is in it. A pinch. So what that says is, it doesn't mean it's a long time that you're spending or interacting, but your words are spot on, and that's salt. These engagements, these encounters we have, the question is, what are we doing with them? Are we sounding like the world who is hopeless and complaining, or do we speak life words, which is salt and light? That's where he sends us. That's where he sends us. In a dark situation, a little bit of light changes everything. Just a little bit. A little bit. You know, early in the morning when it's dark and all of a sudden the sun isn't up, but it's starting to. The whole layout changes from what it was 1 minute earlier. And it hadn't even risen. It's just starting to come. But it impacts everything. And so here we are. We are the salt of the earth. A city that sits on a hill that cannot be hid, except we cover it up. Because he said, who is it that puts a basket over it?
Right.
Which means somebody has to do it because it's naturally shining. And he says, let your light so shine. Let it so shine, Matthew 5. Don't cover it so that others will know you represent me. So do you know what that says? When we don't let it be, when we don't, then we're saying, I'm literally ashamed because I don't want folk to know. So I'm gonna be a secret saint because I don't want folk to know. Hey, you ain't gonna know. I know him. I ain't saying nothing. You see how deep this is? Hey, no, 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 I ain't saying, You be looking at me. Don't be looking at me. And this is where we are. This is where we are. So then how will they know? How will they know? You know, after we impress them with our ship has come in and what God's doing, after we've impressed them with that, do they get to know the one you're talking about? And how will they know except somebody who knows him can tell them? And that's the space that he has us in. Like right now. I can't get away from darkness. I'm interacting with darkness every day. If I don't interact with darkness, I'm not answering the call. It comes find me. I don't have to look for it. So what do? Hey, I'm tired of you. Don't want to talk to you. Don't want to have anything to do with you. That's an alternative. I've done enough for the day. That's an alternative. Or do I deny who he's made me to be? And here's the problem. Here's the problem, salt and light. You still are salt and light whether you own up to it or not. You still are. You still are. That's not going to change because he designated you as that. So you still are. And so as a result, he's going to say, okay, what you doing? What you doing? Like, wait a minute. Okay, we're back to the conversation. Come on, folk. Y'all need to talk. Y'all need to talk. This is good stuff. This is good stuff.
Pastor, I had an opportunity to work with a young lady. Well, I've known her for a long time, and she is out of prison. She was in there for 12 years. And she is a homosexual. But she has proclaimed that she knows Jesus, which I believe her. And my thing is, I don't know how to engage her when it comes to her talking about her relationship with another woman.
Okay, why does that bother you?
It doesn't bother me.
Why are you uncomfortable?
But if you're telling
Why are
me,
you uncomfortable?
But if you tell me,
No,
that
why are you uncomfortable?
I'm not uncomfortable.
Okay,
I just
keep
don't
talking.
know. I'm not uncomfortable with
Go on.
her because I know her very well.
Okay, go on.
So how do I engage her, being that I'm the light?
Why don't you invite her? Come to service with you.
I have done that.
Well, then if she's not, then shut her down and say, I can't help you. Okay, let me explain that before somebody takes it the wrong way. All right. If you're not pointing to the next step above and past you, then you become the idol or the God in their eyes. We run interference. The ultimate goal is to get a person to be lined up with him. We're the carriers to do it. And when you say that and they reject that, then what that says is you're in the way of him. Because it stopped at you. It feels good while we're doing it. This is for us to understand. Because ultimately, what will happen, dependence will be on you, and it won't be on the one who you say who you need to depend on. Your goal is take the transition.
So the thing is, I don't think she's not coming because she doesn't want to come.
No, you're thinking for her. You know that's what you're doing, right? You're drawing a conclusion for her. Is that what she said?
No.
Then therefore you're drawing a conclusion for her. Now, if you're not done, then just stay. It's just to say, again, if we're leading someone, then the question is, where are we leading them? Is it to us, or is it for us to take them to the next place? Now, if they're not willing to go to the next place, then we are in the way.
I don't quite understand that. What if she's the only way to him? Maybe she don't want to come to church now, but if she continue
Do
talking.
you want me to explain it?
Yes.
I'll explain. Pretty simple. Go back and listen to what I said. What I said is, if her goal is, let's just take it like this. You need to get somebody to ER because they need medical attention. And you're saying for you to get the help you need, you have to go here. And they say to you, no, I just want you to stay with me. Out of your heart and your kindness, do you stay with them because they feel better with you staying with them? Or if you say, if I can't get you here, I really can't help you. That's how deep this is. Or what will happen is the reliance and dependence will be on her. I can't wait to talk to you again. I like talking to you. You make me feel good when I talk to you. And what she's saying is, my source, she's saying my source is here. So if my source is here, and if your goal is to be connected with me, the best thing for me to do is to get you connected to the source. So then if you're not interested in being connected to the source, then that means you're interested in being connected to me. And if you stay connected with me, I'm in the way of your ultimate help. You can.
She's the light, and I heard everything you said.
Okay.
But if she's the light to get that young lady to him, but if she discontinues her light, then
Okay, simple. She's not discontinuing it. She's radiating when she says, this is what you need. The best thing I can do for you is to try to do that. And you know where to find me when you're ready. I'm not cutting you off. I'm just not serving in that role of being in his way. That's the difference. That is the difference. Because what will happen is, before you know it, you'll be in the way of what only he can do in that relationship. One plants, 1 Corinthians chapter 3, one plants, another watereth, God does the increase. Ultimately, otherwise what you have is people get into hero or heroine worship.
Thank you.
And they'll start relying on you, and they'll never develop it. However, now there again, And we have to guard against it because the natural response being human is we like for people to be able to say, yeah, yeah. But then on the other hand, if we're a disciple, we're supposed to be making disciples, we're supposed to be taking the steps. So therefore, what we learned on Sunday is you got to be poured into in order to pour into somebody. You're pouring in so they can pour into somebody else to be able to take the next step so that it keeps going in that regard. And so therefore, I'm not an asset if the person just keeps coming to me and say, I'm calling you again because of that. The next question is, are you putting into practice what I talked to you about? Because I have to now be a good steward. And am I a good steward if I keep doing it and there's no evidence? I'm not helping somebody, and this is something we've talked about before. The only way you know you're helping somebody is what you pour in on the backside of that. You can see a distinction where they won't need for you to pour into them the same way you did the last time. That's the only way you know it benefit. There should be some evidence that I did this, then now this. Now, if they stumble, that's different. If there's no effort, because sometimes salt and light will be trying to find a reason to cut somebody off. That's not what this is all about. Somebody may stumble and bumble while trying. That's a difference between, I don't care, I ain't doing nothing. That's different. That's different. That's a little bit different. It's like I said, it's hard, but it's right. It's right. It's fair. It's right, though. It's right. It's right. It's right. Think about this. You want to make it more practical? What if she were giving her money every time? Let's make it practical. She came, I just need $25 more. She give it to her this time. Then she wait till the next time. Then she call her, hey, I need your help again. And now money is going every time. Well, now, all of a sudden, that looks a lot different when money cometh and goeth than just giving some word. The whole thing changed then. Oh, what? You doing? Oh, it's a lot different then, you know. Oh, we see that. I mean, we see it then. See it then. I gave you $500. I gave you $500 more. What you think I am? What you do? Boo boo, pookie, boo boo the clown. What you? All of a sudden, it would change. It would change. Okay.
But Tracy, that's what Jarek and I experienced that night when we had to get you somewhere.
But we don't know what you're talking about. So when you say something like that, see, we're clued. Who knows what you, Jerica, and Tracy are talking about? That's a three-way conversation. We got no idea.
The night that my wife had to go into, before she had to go into emergency surgery for a abscess in the brain, we had done things at the house that night to think that we were handling business and comforting her and doing all that stuff. But if she had been there much longer, she wouldn't be there with us today. So the decision was to get her, regardless of how she felt, we were getting her back to the hospital to save her life. That would be the same thing in saving someone else's life from damnation.
Now, do you know, if you didn't say what I just asked you to say, we'd be sitting up here with Tracy. You know what that was, you know. There would have been an inside joke, inside story. Well, nobody know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, all right.
A few people wouldn't know.
No, nobody would know because you were just talking to Jerica and Tracy.
Right, Tracy didn't even know.
See what I'm talking about. But it's all right. It's all right. You were speaking in code language, but that's okay. That's okay. It's okay. Yeah, it's okay. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I have a different scenario that I see I've run into is when I have gone to share with.
Hold on, before you go to the next scenario, we need to be clear that we've got the principle. You follow me?
Yes, sir.
See, again, before we move anywhere else, I can't go anywhere else now until we get what we talk about.
Okay.
Before we can add another brick to it.
Okay.
So do we get the principle? You can't stand in the way. Your goal is to take them to him, not to be dependent on you.
Right.
That's right.
Now, you may carry a burden to him, but you cannot be viewed as the burden bearer.
Right.
Okay.
All right. So, I've had several occasions where I just shared with a person, and unbeknownst to me, I was dealing with people that had been wounded, hurt, either by church people or physically from a church they were in, and being a knowing not to enable, I just stopped. My question would be that was then. If I run into a situation I'm sharing with someone, and right away, very early in the
So
conversation,
tell me this, because we use that church cliche, sharing. What does that mean? That's another church
gotcha.
cliche.
In other words, I'm whether it's they comment on how I carry myself and they say something negative, and I may say, no, well, there's more to the story. We shouldn't judge on that. Something to that point. So it would be talking opposite to how they're talking. They're getting upset and going somewhere, and I don't want to go in that path. So I'll say, well, were you there? No. Okay, so then the way I'm taught, this is how I normally say it. The way I'm taught, unless I was there or the person said it to me, I don't know. I just have heard. And they would see it as me always being positive. And so whenever I hear that, I always say, well, no, I have to give that to the Lord. If they compliment me for something that I did or how I carry myself, I have to say it's the Lord. This is not how I've always been. I'm still growing. This is how I talk.
Okay, hold on. You've kind of gone somewhere and you're jumbling it up. So come back and.
Gotcha.
Okay, so you're saying when you come in contact with somebody who's experienced hurt in the past and you're trying to help them, is that the direction you're going in?
Right. That's a particular category. Correct.
Okay.
All right. And so until tonight, I basically would say, okay, and just pray for him, and that's it. I'm going to leave him alone because I don't feel qualified to go any further. I don't want to add anymore. If I call myself trying to get them to see it another way or put a salve on it as they would see, it would aggravate them. And in my perspective, my lack of preparation or knowledge,
Okay.
I'd
All
back
right.
off.
Okay, got it. All right, there again. If you're trying to be the solution to the situation that you're not the solution to that dilemma, then you do transference. Who can help? And you take the step to do that.
But they've shut me down.
They shut you down?
Yes, sir. I'll tell you what. You can talk to me. You can give me a hug. You
Okay.
can like that.
All right.
But I don't want to hear about the Lord. I don't
then,
get like that.
Then that meant then you were premature.
Gotcha.
Are you all following what I'm saying? You were premature. Again, you have to pay a price to have access to use certain words with people. The price has to be paid ahead of time. Then it gives you entrance to have a certain exchange. If you haven't paid the price to build it to that point, it's some things, as well-intentioned as we are, is conflictual. Mm-hmm. And everything about what you're saying could be accurate, but you haven't paid the price to be able to say it.
Well, how do we identify you've paid the price? How do you?
Simple.
Yeah.
Simple.
Okay.
It's not complicated.
Okay.
Okay, here it is. All right, I just met Tawanda. We're co-workers. Mm-hmm. And Tawanda is a murmurer, always murmuring.
Right.
Yeah, So she's murmuring, and I'm just noticing that. But we work in the same department. We get the chance to interact with each other. Although she's doing it every day, and that's inconsistent with where I am. The first thing I need to do is to connect and establish a relationship.
Right.
The murmuring has to keep going on in the meantime.
Right.
It has to keep going on.
Right.
And I have to deal with me in terms of whether or not that bothers me.
Right.
But the key thing is I've got to build a relationship. Otherwise, as spot on as I am, as difficult as the environment is, I have not earned the right to say something to her.
Right. Okay. I get that. But I'm saying
That's the only relationship has to be established. If you don't have the relationship, then it's dishonest or invasion for you to try to say some things and you haven't paid the price.
okay. So when do we know we have the right? Really?
No.
Don't go there
You're
too.
going too far.
Okay.
You're going too far. Now you're going intellectual. You're going too far.
Okay.
Relationship is relationship. You know when you have a relationship with somebody. You can talk to them. They can talk to you.
But the
That's
cases,
relationship.
the cases I'm giving you, we
No,
talk.
you're going too far.
Okay.
Again, you're going too far. You may have an associative exchange, And that's not the same thing as a relationship. You're just tossing information back and forth. That doesn't translate into relationship. Relationship is I can talk to you and you can talk to me. That's a relationship. Exchange of information is just associative exchange. That's all. That's not relationship. It's a lot of people you have this exchange with, and there's no relationship. You see them the next time. You can toss out certain things, but it's not a real relationship.
So the question is still going to be, Pastor, how are you going to know?
You're not listening.
I'm not getting it.
No, you're not listening.
Okay, help me out.
Because you're trying to come up with another way other than what I'm saying.
No, I'm trying to understand what you're saying.
No, just listen.
Okay.
You can talk to them,
Yes.
and they can talk to you.
Yes.
You'll listen to them,
Yes.
and they'll listen to you. That's a relationship. Other than that, there's no relationship. That's not complicated. So now what else you want to ask? If people don't listen to you and you don't listen to them, you don't have a relationship. You just got words flying all over the place. That's all it is. There's no relationship. There's no relationship. Yes, ma'am.
I think I got it. So, in an example, like you can be family members with somebody, right? So there's a relationship there, there's an association there, but if we can't have that exchange, I don't have that type of relationship where I can go there with them because they're not ready to listen. I think that's what.
And it doesn't matter how long you've known them,
Right.
how much you're around them. If
Right.
there's no relationship, there's no
Or
relationship.
they're not ready to receive.
No.
Like I have an aunt who is a God believer, but not a Jesus believer. And we can't have that type of discussion because we know where each other stand. But we can love each other. We can, have a meal together, whatever. But we don't have that relationship because she's not ready to receive it. Is that what?
Correct,
we
because
are?
so many times our own zeal gets in the way,
Yeah.
which is an indication that we are. All right, let me phrase this properly. Our historical makeup has made us fixers. And if we don't guard against it, we are spiritualized fixing. Because that's our makeup. We don't want to see people hurt. So we'll cover spaces for them to build a case as to why we need to be going there. When really, no. Now, you all get to find out a little bit more about these things come starting Sunday when we start talking about maximizing and how to get to where you are. But it's going to mean probing and digging and taking a look at yourself. There is no possibility of a relationship being established with anyone unless you have cleansed you. The building of a relationship literally is not contingent upon somebody else, it's contingent upon you. There is no such thing as a 50-50 relationship. We like to talk that stuff. Either you're 100% in or you're not in at all. There is no 50-50. That's stuff. That's that stuff we make up. And we start hanging these standards over people. When Jesus said, if anybody's going to come after me, they got to shut themselves down, dive all the way in. So we can't please him when we half-heartedly are talking about engaging somebody in his name. In his name, you got to be all in. You've got to be all in. Or it's on you. It's not on them. It's not on them. Because if you're all in, then what you say to me is not going to throw me off. You're not going to offend me by something you say because I know what it says in Psalm 119, 165. Great peace have those who love their law and nothing shall offend me. So you're not going to offend me by how you throw stuff back at me. Now, you may think you are, but it's like, whatever. I've dealt with worse and better. I dealt with better insults than what you're trying to throw at me. So that little low-level insult you got don't mean nothing. Is that the best you got, kindergartner? So that don't mean a thing. Like, and you thought you was doing something. Like, oh, yeah, you thought you had driven something home. You hadn't driven anything home. It's like, oh, I heard that when I was a little boy. That don't mean nothing. Heard that as a little boy. You talking about something like that? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I want to make sure I get this right because I've been down this road before, and I don't want to mess it up. So I did talk to her today. She has moved into her own place. That was a struggle for her, but she finally found her place. And so my next move, because she was talking about we could go back to lunch together, but it sounds like that is not the move I should be making.
No, what does she want from you?
Well, right now she doesn't need anything from me.
No, that's not my question. What does she want from you? She wants something because she keep hanging around. What does she want from you? Have you ever asked her?
She is not.
No. Listen to the question. Have you ever asked her what she wants from you?
No.
Okay. That's where it starts. That's where it starts. When somebody places an order, if it's not on your menu, you can't deliver. You have to tell them. I don't have those products. That's how you deal with it.
Pastor, we've been a part of this young lady's life probably since the 6th grade.
And
she's 40
and
something right now.
No. And so
And
what? So what?
What she wants from us
No.
is what we've already given her.
I was asking Tracy. Now you diving in to help her out. This is
We're
on,
trying to
so
put some history, Pastor, to it.
I don't need any history. Are you trying to help her out? Is she coming to you like that, or is she coming to Tracy?
Both of us.
So then, what does she want from you?
If I had to say it,
You don't know, right? You don't know. Have you asked her? So you haven't asked her, have you? Okay, so much for that. Now, okay, so much for that. Otherwise, you all are going to come up with an answer for her. I do understand. That's why our heart and emotions get in it. Let the person answer the question. And if they don't answer the question, then they're at the wrong restaurant. They don't need to be going to look at your menu and they walking in there and don't know what they want. You got to ask them.
We're going to have the answer next Wednesday.
Okay. Like, what do they want? But we get accustomed to how we function and do things. We get accustomed to it until it becomes so natural for us, and sometimes we don't even know why we're doing it. But it's our new routine. You gotta get some answers. You gotta get some answers. It's like, wait a minute, why you keep calling me? What you calling me for? The last time we talked, you raised the same thing, and I provided you with some information. Did you follow through? Do you know, until you follow through, do not call me anymore. That don't mean I don't love you, but I can't help you until you follow through. That really is it. Otherwise, not helping you at all. And that's okay. That's just part of the process. That's the reason why I give homework to people all the time. And I just wait and see do they do it. Now, if they don't, no more information from me. Mm-mm. And she had her hand up, so then now she's under conviction. She's in the court of law now. She had her hand up.
So if I'm understanding right, you, I guess, build a relationship with someone. You give them information, they don't receive it. You step away, then all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, at some point they become receptive. Receptive to the information. So do you allow for that space, or since you drew back because they were not receptive at first?
Well, the question becomes, was what you extended to them the appropriate thing, or was it because of something you wanted to extend to them? Was it an answer to a dilemma that they brought to you? Or were you trying to offer something to them that will make them better? See, that's a totally different scenario now.
Well,
See, through observation, through observation, we try to determine what we want to say to somebody And the question is, was there a level of receptivity by virtue of them saying, I need to know something? Or did we predetermine based on our own assessment to say this is what they need? Now here's the difference. There are some things I could see about everybody in here that I could say. And some might say, I don't want to hear that. That's on you. Because my directives come from a different place. I don't have to look and try to judge anybody to come up with something. I just got to respond when God says something. So then, therefore, it don't even matter. So I might say, well, get out of my business. You ain't got no business. If your business is bigger than the kingdom, you ain't got no business. Because if you say this is your goal, what's this other stuff got to do with anything other than you personally don't want to hear it? So it's like you got to come on with it. I mean, you got to come on with it. Okay, now keep going.
Okay, so say you try to share information with someone, they're one, not receptive, but also their behavior is also harmful.
So let me ask you, did they want the information from you or you felt like you need to give it to them?
No.
No, give it back to them. Which one is it? Those are two different things.
I guess not.
No, you guess not what?
No.
No what?
They didn't want it.
Did they ask?
No.
Now you see? Remember when I said these are two totally different things.
But
Go on. So here's the difference. You see, it's one of two things. We either assign ourselves as a fruit inspector or we get hired as a fruit picker.
okay, I got you.
And they're totally different. They're totally different.
So we'll make ourselves or fruit picker, fruit inspector.
We declare ourselves as a fruit inspector. We get hired as a fruit picker.
Okay.
The fruit picking is with permission. The inspection is by judgment. According to us. That's correct. So we had an overinflated view of ourselves, which says, and what that says is, we are not subject to someone, or we would have known better that we never should have stepped ourselves out there.
Okay.
Because if you can't stand the scrutiny when somebody pushes back, and you take offense when they push back, then that says you were out of place to begin with. Because if it's an assignment for you, when they push back, it won't bother you. It won't bother you at all. Oh, okay, well, I'm just sitting and wait. I'll wait you out. And it's like I'll wait you out. I'll wait you out. Because it was just like a friend. And I mentioned this friend at one point. I mean, he went completely off on me and just firing left and right, just telling me about how awful I was and everything else. And I said, I know what to do with you. I'll just sit here and wait you out, bro. I don't have to talk to you. You put it out there, I don't have to talk to you. So in his own way, weeks later, he circled back and whispered, I'm sorry. But the other stuff was off the chain. But because that's what he could offer, I graciously received. Instead of saying, you went off publicly, bro. You got to apologize publicly. I know how it goes. No, I ain't taking it like this in private with a whisper. They need to hear you say it. In the name of Jesus. Okay, go. You know how you are, child of God, but go on.
Okay. You called us salt and light, right? And
I'm just repeating what the Lord said you are.
I know.
All
I
right?
understand.
But that's just to make sure it doesn't seem
But
like
if
I called
we-
you that. I have to
if-
make sure we clarify because some folk think I'm calling you all names, giving you all nicknames. But no, I
No.
just no. Again, you all are physically in here, but this is out here well past that. So you got to know what we do and say has to be clarified all the time, or assumptions would be made.
Right. I understand.
Okay, all right,
Okay. But as salt and light,
okay,
as we are.
correct.
Okay.
You moving on up, but keep on going.
Okay. My question is, and I'm thinking it's still relating to their question. If we are salt and light, how do we be salt and light to those people in our life if, and I heard you about the relationship part, but how do we have that opportunity to be salt and light if they don't, if we're not able to talk to them or get them into outside of the relationship part of it?
Okay. All right. Well, first of all, how much time do we have before 7:30? All right. Well, we got 3 minutes. We'll go to 7:35 and stop. So that's as far as we can go. Well, you are what you are. So light is light. Salt is salt. It does not change because somebody doesn't access it. You still are light. You still are salt. Part of which is another part of the conversation. The fruit of part of the fruit of the spirit is patience, waiting. Without believing, we have to. 1 Peter 3:15 says, "Sanctify the Lord God in your heart, and always be ready to give a reason for the hope." In other words, it said you wait until the moment is there, and now you're ready. Because you can't ever tell when it's going to be. That's why you got to be ready. It could be at some point in time, somebody could have walked by you, gone by you, ignored you, never said anything to you, and then all of a sudden said something to you. Are you ready at that point to say something? Are you ready at that moment? And although you may have given up on the possibility, but all of a sudden that moment was there. Are you ready? Or is it like you should have listened to me a long time ago? If you came to me a long time ago, you wouldn't be going through what you're going through. You see how we get into it? As opposed to, I'm so glad you came to me to talk to me now. Classic example. A young lady, she's a teenager. She's like 16. She sent me this note. She said, "I was told I should have talked to you last spring, but now I'm ready to talk." So she sent me this note explaining, and she answered the questions that was given to her mother months ago, and she said, "I'm ready now." Mother was ready way back last spring. She wasn't, but she initiated this herself. So should I have said, "It's about time, who are you?" Or is it, "This is the moment"? And literally, from April until now, she reached out a couple of days ago. And we started the conversation that was wanted months back. Just wait. Just wait. And that really is it. Just be ready. Just be ready. Because the Lord knows when that divine rendezvous is going to take place. But you got to be ready, which means you got to keep yourself clean. Because if you don't keep yourself clean, you'll contaminate them by how you viewed how they came to you. And sometimes people may come to you the wrong way because they're doing the best that they can in coming. And it's, how do you engage them? It's like, how do you engage them? It's like, how do you? I mean, I don't expect. I don't expect some of the people who are out there to talk in a certain way. I'm not expecting a person who is profane, and that's how they talk most of the day. I'm not expecting them to come to me and say, "Kind sir, what you like? Could you just help a brother out?" I'm not looking for that. I'm expecting something else. I'm not expecting not expecting that. Yes, sir.
I think you answered the question, Pastor. I was back here giving high fives to you. But something that I there was a sense that I get from some of the questions that we may either miss the opportunity, right? Like if I don't say something to them now and something happens, then, I've not only have I missed the opportunity, but, they didn't get the opportunity to hear it from me. And so there was this sense of that. And one of the things that just I kept kind of thinking about was that not only is that statement about one planting, one watering, but how you talked about being patient, being ready for when the time comes, right? That the Lord makes provisions for his children all of the time. And we see that specifically when we look at that scene with the Ethiopian eunuch and Philip, because he was on his way and the Holy Spirit sent Philip to him.
So
And
I'm going to
yeah.
help him out. He's talking about in Acts chapter 8. So there
Yeah,
again,
thank
you have to make sure you
Yeah.
contextualize it.
Acts chapter 8.
Our folk will be
In
wondering
Acts.
who,
Yeah, when we
who
see
is that Ethiopian.
That brother
Yeah,
in the Bible.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what just kept kind of into my spirit. Like, okay, we are not going to those that we feel that we need to preach to, teach to, all that stuff that pastors counsel us against. They're not going to fall off and miss the ball, or they're not going to fall through the cracks. That if we're ready, as Pastor's saying, and if we are prepared when they do come, because they will come, it may not be them to you, it may be them to your partner or them to someone else, but they will come, so we need to be ready. But that was just, I mean,
Right.
you answered the
Right.
question. I just want
Right.
to bring that out.
Right, so because you have to nurture all these relationships. Now, that was a commercial, and many of you never heard of this, but it was a wine that used to be sold, and their catchphrase was, "We will sell no wine before it's time." Okay, and so in other words, literally it says, we don't just put anything out there. We wait until it's right. And so what that means is the timing is always right, but you've got to be prepared. So that's in the meantime is to stay in the word. Make sure that you're dealing with relations. Make sure you're dealing with your current relationships properly. Are you a good steward over the ones that exist? Because if you're not, you certainly are not usable with the fragile nature of eternity being on the line and somebody coming to you. Because he's like, oh no, I see what you're doing right here. I know what you'll do for somebody who doesn't know me, who needs nurturing in a delicate way to engage. So I do understand. So therefore, don't enlist yourself as a fruit inspector. Just don't, because you'll always miss something. You'll always miss something. You'll always miss something. And I'll tell you this last thing. Somebody who's been trained to be a fruit inspector that goes to an apple tree and that's what they do, at a distance they can tell whether or not it's been contaminated by insect, because there's something they'll see that you would never pick up on, because their eyes have been trained to look out for certain things. And they could see it right away. And you'd be all up on wondering, well, what? I don't see what you're talking about. And then they'll say, if you look over here, that quarter inch over there, that slit there tells you that something has been in here and it hasn't been sprayed down properly. They will be able to see those things. You would not. You would not. Right. So, Father, we thank you. Thank you for what you're doing, and for speaking to us to give us even more clarity about how we can be salt and light in a practical way. We know you've already deemed us, assigned us, called us to be that, but acting it out. So we thank you for what's going to happen. not only for those who are physically here, but those who have heard tonight and those who will be hearing.